Hello everyone. I warmly wish you good health and lasting peace in your heart, no matter where your journey takes you. As I step into a new chapter of my life, I carry nothing but courage and the scars of where I've been. What will this new journey hold for me, a girl once homeless, broken, and forgotten? I don't have the answers yet, but one thing brings light to my path: CEO Toan. He stands by me not out of pity, but out of something far deeper, and perhaps the most unexpected miracle of all is the look in his mother's eyes. Once filled with doubt, now softened with something that feels like the beginning of faith. Maybe this is how a new life begins, not loudly, but with love quietly choosing you, again and again.
Under the fading golden light of a late afternoon, Tu Diem sat by the window, her gaze lost in the silence. The wind carried the scent of wild grass and distant memories of pain, of being chased, of hunger, and of the cruel label society had thrown upon her, a girl with no place to belong. But in that moment of fragile calm, her heart was no longer burdened with fear, because someone, somewhere, still believed in her. Her name was once whispered with pity: Tu Diem, the girl who was abandoned by her own family, who had nothing but a pair of worn shoes and the will to survive. She had wandered through storms and shadows, hiding in old houses, collecting leaves for food, trembling under the cold sky. Yet through all the darkness, she never gave up her dream of one day being seen, not with judgment, but with kindness. That light came in the form of a man named Toan. CEO Toan had everything: wealth, power, and respect. But the day Tu Diem appeared in his life, fragile, rain-soaked, and shivering by an abandoned cabin, something in him changed. Her courage pierced through his soul like a quiet echo. She wasn't just a girl who had saved his life in the forest. She was someone who, despite losing everything, still carried dignity in her silence, still gave without asking anything in return. When Diem fell ill from exhaustion and was taken to the hospital, Toan stood by her side. Never leaving, he brought her warm food, clean clothes, and above all, a place she could feel safe. He saw in her not just a girl who needed help, but a soul that deserved protection. His heart whispered a vow: no one will hurt her again. But the world wasn't ready to accept her so easily. Whispers rose, judgments followed. Even his own mother, the stern and elegant woman of high society, had doubts. At their first meal together, she looked at Diem, her clothes simple, her hands rough from labor, and said nothing. The silence felt heavy, almost sharp, yet it wasn't rejection. It was reflection. For days after, Toan's mother observed Diem from afar. She saw how Diem would quietly help clean the house, how she carefully watered the plants, how she always served food to the elders first. And when she thought no one was watching, she sat in the garden and whispered prayers for the family's peace. The change came quietly. One morning, as Diem was folding laundry, Toan's mother approached and gently placed a warm scarf around her shoulders. No words were spoken, but the gesture said everything. Faith had begun. Toan, standing at a distance, smiled with tears in his eyes. He had fought many battles in boardrooms, but this was the one that mattered most: to prove that love could bloom even from broken soil. That a homeless girl like Tu Diem could find her place, not just in his heart, but in the family. Now, a new journey awaited Tu Diem, one no longer defined by fear, but by hope. With Toan by her side, and the quiet acceptance of his mother growing day by day, Diem was no longer just surviving. Tu Diem's hands trembled slightly as she placed the steaming tray of banana cakes onto the bamboo table. The sweet aroma filled the quiet kitchen, blending with the soft chirping of sparrows perched on the windowsill. She glanced outside where the sun cast a golden glow over the farm, and for a moment, she allowed herself to smile, not with joy, but with the fragile relief of someone who had been running for too long. CEO Toan had been watching her from the porch, his arms crossed, his expression calm but attentive. Ever since he brought her back from the edge of illness, he had remained quietly by her side, never demanding, never asking too much, just present. In his presence, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel ashamed. He made her feel safe, even when the world had turned its back on her. But safety was fleeting. Word had spread in whispers about the strange girl staying in the CEO's country house, about her mysterious past, and about the way Toan looked at her like she was someone worth protecting. The rumors reached the city, to boardrooms, to elegant tea tables, and finally, to the ears of Toan's mother. Madame Lan, a woman known for her grace and composure, did not react outwardly when she first heard the name Tu Diem. But deep down, a storm began to form. She had built her family with care, status, and perfection. Her son was meant to marry a girl with pedigree, not someone homeless, nameless, and covered in scars from a past no one dared to ask about. And yet, Madame Lan had always trusted her son's judgment. One afternoon, without warning, she arrived at the farmhouse. Her driver opened the car door, and she stepped down in a tailored ivory suit, her heels clicking softly on the stone path. Tu Diem, who had just finished feeding the chickens, looked up, her hands still dusty with cornmeal. Their eyes met. Time froze. Tu Diem bowed quickly, not out of fear, but out of habit. A life of being lesser had taught her that silence was safer than words. Madame Lan's gaze lingered on the fragile girl in front of her. She saw the torn sleeves, the dirt beneath her nails, the timid posture, but she also saw the kindness in her eyes, the quiet strength, the patience, and perhaps something that surprised even her, dignity. That night, Toan sat at the dinner table between his mother and Tu Diem, tension heavy in the air. No one spoke for a while. Then, Madame Lan finally lifted her teacup and said softly, "I watched you from afar. You didn't ask for anything, yet you gave warmth to my son when he had lost everything. For that alone, I owe you a debt of grace." Tu Diem's eyes filled with tears, but she held them in. Toan reached for her hand under the table. It was the beginning, not of full acceptance, not yet, but of something deeper, a seed of faith. That night, as the crickets sang outside and an oil lamp flickered softly beside them, Tu Diem stood on the balcony, her fingers gently tracing the wooden railing. The wind carried the scent of rice fields and distant rain, and she closed her eyes, feeling everything, the uncertainty, the gratitude, the fragile thread of hope winding through her chest. Toan joined her silently, his presence warm and steady, without a word. He draped his jacket over her shoulders. "You're cold," he whispered. She didn't answer right away. Then she asked, her voice barely above the wind, "Do you think your mother will ever truly accept someone like me?" Toan turned to her, his expression firm. "She already has, in her own way. It may not look like approval yet, but it's a door she never opened for anyone before. And I don't need her to love you, because I already do." Tu Diem's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected him to say those words, not now. not so plainly. Her heart beat wildly in her chest, not out of fear, but disbelief. She turned toward him, her voice trembling. "Toan, I'm not whole. I come with so many broken pieces." He smiled gently and replied, "Then we'll build something beautiful with them, together." The following days passed quietly but meaningfully. Madame Lan extended her stay, curious to observe not only the Diem, but also the way her son had changed. He smiled more now, not the polished smile of a CEO at networking events, but the kind of smile a man wears when his heart is at peace. The Diem, once afraid of every voice and shadow, now laughed softly when she watered the plants, or when Toan tried and failed to cook breakfast. One morning, as dew still clung to the grass, Madame Lan invited the Diem for tea. Just the two of them. The air was silent between them as the tea cooled. Then, without pretense, Madame Lan said, "My son was drowning once, in a world of power and isolation. I see now. You pulled him back to shore." To Diem lowered her gaze. "I didn't do anything special." Madame Lan reached forward, gently placing a hand over hers. "That's what makes it special." And just like that, the first real crack in the wall between them became a bridge. 1 week later, at sunset, Toan brought Diem to the hill where they had first watched the sky together. He knelt down, holding a simple silver ring shaped like a leaf, delicate, strong, and shaped by time. "Ly Tu Diem, will you marry me?" Her hands flew to her mouth in shock. She could barely speak, but her eyes, wet with tears, said everything. "Yes," she whispered, "yes." As they embraced, far below in the valley, lanterns lit up one by one, as if the stars had come down early to celebrate love's quiet victory. Life lesson from the story of CEO Toan and Ly Tu Diem. True love is not always grand or dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, patient, and born in the most unexpected places, like a forgotten forest, a shared bowl of rice, or a simple act of kindness when the world turns its back. The story of Toan and Diem reminds us that love does not judge by status, background, or wealth. Instead, it grows through trust, compassion, and resilience. Diem had every reason to give up, abandoned, betrayed, and treated as less than human. Yet she chose to live, to help, and to believe in someone again. Toan, despite being powerful and wealthy, found himself broken and lost. And it was not luxury or influence that saved him, but the humble care of a woman who had nothing to offer except her heart. Their journey teaches us that healing takes time, that broken people can still build beautiful things, and that forgiveness, both from others and from ourselves, is essential to moving forward. Most importantly, it shows us that love is not just about feeling, but choosing to stay, to fight, and to grow, even when it's hard. In the end, love is not about finding someone perfect. It is about finding someone who sees your imperfections and still believes you are worthy of happiness. Let us all remember, kindness can save a life, love can restore it, and patience can protect it forever.